All right, let's take some time to go over dumbbell shoulder press. So we're gonna bring the bench upright. Some people like to have the bench completely upright like this, and myself personally, I find that I can't get into the proper position. So this is why I don't like to have it more upright. Like, it's not bad, but I can't drive as much force from my legs and my glutes into position. So I find as well too, I can't get a full extension at the top. So if you want to be upright like that, there's nothing wrong with that. Me personally, I like to have it down just ever so slightly, about 75 degrees versus a full 90 degrees. So most benches don't tell you that it's 75 degrees. Mine does, which is very handy, but typically it's just a little bit further back like that. So between 60 and 75 degrees, where the bench is a little bit back on an angle like that, you're still gonna be able to target those front delts, which is what we're trying to accomplish with the dumbbell shoulder press. Very similar to dumbbell chest press, where we want to focus on not flaring our elbows. So when we are doing the dumbbell shoulder press, we're going to kick the dumbbells up into the starting position, maintain a 5-point contact, head, shoulders, butt, both feet. That's a 5-point contact. So I have the dumbbells further forward like this. My focus is on keeping my forearms parallel to one another. So with my starting position down like this, the dumbbells are touching my front delts. We're gonna initiate the movement by extending our elbows over our head. And I typically keep my palms facing each other when I am initiating the movement for the full range of motion. You will see a lot of people flare their elbows out like this and push up overhead like this. There is nothing wrong with this technique. The reason why I don't do it personally is because I don't get as big of a range of motion. If I have the dumbbells as my elbows are flared out, touch my front delts, this feels very uncomfortable on my front delts. The stretch feels very uncomfortable, which I don't prefer. So it doesn't allow me. This would be my end range of motion where I'm in a comfortable position, but I'm not getting as large of a range of motion as I could if I simply tuck the dumbbells in. Because if the dumbbells come down and touch my front delts like this doesn't hurt. This doesn't cause any pain or anything like that, but I'm gonna be getting a larger range of motion with this starting position. So if this is my starting position, by tucking my elbows ever so slightly, you can see when I go to extend, it's gonna be a larger range of motion. So again, depends on the individual and what you prefer. There's nothing wrong with flaring your elbows. If you prefer, me personally, I find it to be just not as comfortable. So when we initiate the movement, we're gonna kick both of the dumbbells up into our starting position where they are touching our front delts, and focus on breathing out when we go to push up. So I typically will breathe in when I kick the dumbbells up and then breathe out to initiate the movement. So breathe in on the way down and breathe out to maximize power output. So again, that's how it looks when we keep our elbows tucked ever so slightly. If you would prefer to have your palms facing forward and flaring your elbows, there's nothing wrong with this technique. But like I said, I find you can't get as much of a range of motion because if you keep going down, yeah, that doesn't feel nice on the actual delts. So if you want to increase your range of motion, which should be our goal ultimately when we're trying to promote muscle growth, tucking ever so slightly, having those dumbbells touch our front delts. That's the main goal there with a range of motion, with a full range of motion. So oftentimes you will see people kind of arch their back when they're doing this movement pattern. You don't want to overemphasize the arch where it's getting so dramatic that it's really pushing the load for you. But a slight arch is totally okay and often necessary so that way you can keep your forearms in line. So let's quickly go over the differences between that, shall we? So an overemphasized arch that you want to avoid is where when you go to push up, your back is moving at the same time in order to get the weight all the way up And you'll notice that my shoulder blades are coming off of the bench and we're no longer maintaining a 5-point contact. So of course, overemphasized arches like that, let's try to avoid that, but you can shift your hips forward ever so slightly, and often this can be helpful, providing you keep your shoulder blades glued to the bench, and this is gonna keep better alignment. So what I mean by that is if I have my hips further forward, but we're maintaining a 5-point contact right here, pay attention to my elbows. At the ending range of motion, they're still in line with my wrists. So when we go to push up, even though my hips are dipped forward, therefore there's a little bit of an arch, I'm still maintaining my 5-point contact and my elbows are still in line with my wrists. When we don't shift our hips forward like that, and typically when you're a little bit more upright with the bench at 90 degrees, this will happen as well too. Pay attention to when I keep my back glued to the bench, pay attention to what happens to my elbows at the end of the range of motion. So right here, you'll start to see that my elbows fall behind my wrists. So we're losing alignment where often when people go to press, they'll feel it in their triceps when they go to extend their elbows, which obviously is not what we want, and that's because of the improper alignment where the elbows are falling behind the wrists at the front, at the end range of motion, because we're trying so hard to keep our back glued to the bench. Our back isn't part of the 5-point contact. The 5-point contact is our head, our shoulders, our butt, and both of our feet. So if you need to, bring your hips forward like that. Shoulders are in place, head is in place, butt and feet are. It's okay that your back is further away from the bench. Often I would prefer that because it's going to keep better alignment between your elbows and your wrists, so we can keep that tension on your front delts and your triceps aren't taking over. That's the dumbbell shoulder press.